Well, we're here with Bob Christianson, the CEO of Did You Media Inc., for our next segment on entrepreneurs we like. So, Bob, thank you. Welcome.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dan. Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you.
So, just ask you a few questions, just really about your background and how you got involved in the entrepreneurial side of business. So, first, really broad-based question to start you off. What was your road to being an entrepreneur? I've checked out your LinkedIn profile. I see there's some background in corporate and oil and gas, but if you just fill us in a little bit how you got into this space.
Okay. Well, really, I grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and that was the sort of the training ground and the genesis for what has been my whole life. Okay. And I guess I'd be called a serial entrepreneur. And I had a father that left a sort of a secure business, big business opportunity, and started his own business when I was in early high school. And we went through the really low cash years, and I remember those really well, where he was struggling to build his business. And I'd actually left home before he actually had started seeing the success of his labors. Okay. and became a very successful businessman. And ultimately I went back and worked for him for quite a few years in what was a family business called Christianson Pipe. Really what happened though is the evolution of Christianson Pipe. When I became the president of that, I saw that it was on the down cycle of its really productive business curve. Mm-hmm. And so then I decided that we needed to do something with Christianson Pipe, and that took me towards my next entrepreneurial step, and where we started rolling up some businesses and created a oil field service roll-up of businesses called IPEC. Mm-hmm. Limited, and we built that into a pretty good size, and I exited that when Flint Energy Services did a reverse takeover of our Toronto Stock Exchange listing at that time, and then moved on to some other ventures since then, and ended up where we are now with Did You.
Okay, all right. So obviously you're speaking about the low cash years and some of the adversity that you faced growing up as the son of an entrepreneur. What are some of the challenges you faced personally on your road to getting to Did You?
To Did You? Well, actually, Did You is an interesting project because my last business was a challenging, very, very challenging environment. I guess that's a good way of putting it. And for a lot of reasons, it didn't make it. Some us, the management, mm-hmm. some the economic environment, some outside influences. And that was my first loss. I'd always won. You know, I'd sort of been batting 100%. Okay. And that was a real humbling experience. But as I was traveling back and forth to Toronto and New York, trying to deal with this last business, the concept of the social media site, or getting the word out about good, kept coming back to me. So I started a journal, and I just kept it in my briefcase. So I'd work on the tough stuff, and then for a little bit of a break, I'd journal on this site and what I thought it could be done. And that it kept coming up more and more in my travels. And then actually when we dealt with the other business and wound it down, I just kept writing things about this site. I didn't know what it was going to be called at that point. Or whether it would be called anything, whether it would amount to anything. But I talked to my wife Angela and afterwards, and I said, you know, this thing just isn't going away, and it's a new concept. It's social media. It's hard to really do proper valuation metrics. It's hard to really, you know, run the numbers on how you might make something like this work. Yeah. And I said, but it's just not going away. So we discussed it, and between the two of us, we decided, well, you know, let's build it. Obviously, there's something there, there's a genesis of something, and so we just decided to build it. And that was the most sort of business planned type of a concept that I'd ever dealt with. And so I really didn't know anything about social media, so I just dove into it, researched as much as I could, mm-hmm. talked to people, and but the big thing was the idea of a site that was meant to encourage others to do good, or to do good for each other, yeah. And on a daily basis, as opposed to just a focus on what I've been doing. We see on a lot of social media, on Facebook and Twitter, which is all entertaining and enjoyable, but sometimes the self-focus is not all that productive. And so I just thought that if we could do this, so a big part of what we had to do with before we could proceed is I had to find people that understood what I was trying to do. So I interviewed a lot of developers. I had a lot of developers work for me in my last business who were very talented, but they just didn't have the mindset that I was looking for. And so I ended up finding a wonderful woman in Boston that has a company called Pierce Street Consulting. Her name's Fuchsia McElhaney. And I talked to Fuchsia and she got it. And I said, okay, now that I've found somebody that I really think can build it and understand what we're trying to do here, it's time to proceed. So then we just moved on with it.
Now, did you two connect on social media or via social media platform?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Kind of the power of it, right?
That's right. Yeah, and that's actually all she does is build social media platforms. She's become quite a well-recognized leader in platforms in the United States, and has done a lot of really neat things for the U.S. military, some of the Olympic stuff. She's very talented.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very neat.
Yeah.
So with social media, was it something that you recognized? It wasn't a fad, it wasn't a trend. Like it was something here to stay. And what was the inspiration for getting onto a social media platform?
Well, in our last business, what we did is we built mobile and online ticketing systems. Okay. Like one of our largest customers in Canada was Cineplex Entertainment. So we built their they jumped the line system and their first mobile ticketing app. And our mobile ticketing app was the first one introduced in North America that was really an m-commerce type of a solution. So just in working in that environment, working sort of in the digital space, I just saw where social media was going, and I saw the numbers, and I saw the way that people were ramping and using it, and I just knew that pretty soon everything was going to be done on the phone. Okay. All that communication was going to be there, and that really it was the next screen. We talk about the television, the computer, like the third screen, and then beyond. And it's even accelerated faster than I could have ever imagined. With the iPads and other technologies out there right now, we really are seeing a transition faster than I think anybody could have predicted into really a global digital communication sphere. And so having the experience in that entertainment sector really just opened my eyes to the realities of where this thing was going, and how digital space and communication through social media was a way to do that, because we were going to set up ticketing all through the social media stuff and all that. That was all on the horizon, right?
Yeah, very smart. All right. So Bob, just before we finish up, is there any advice or insights you could offer local Calgarians who are trying to get into the entrepreneurial side of business, trying to be their own boss? Is there?
Well, I think that it's funny, and it sort of mixes a little bit with what we're trying to do in Did What I've seen in business, I think I've seen some great stuff in business, and I've seen some not so great stuff in business. And I'd encourage everyone to, if you really do have a dream, to chase it a little bit. Don't be afraid to step out there, out of your comfort zone. But I think that if you want to be entrepreneurial in the world that we're in right now, you better not just be looking for a bottom line return. That's important, but the world that we now are gravitating to, thank goodness, involves generosity to your employees, to your customers, to the environment, and to everyone. So I think if you're going to truly be a successful entrepreneur, you have to transcend all of those areas. And I would encourage anybody that does something to say, if I can't work in all of that, I should probably just stay working where I'm at.
All right. Good advice. Good advice. Bob, thank you again for coming in for Entrepreneurs We Like.
You're welcome.
And you'll be able to find Bob's contact information and the Did You website below the video.